Since we mentioned about the course outline, these are the typical content of the course outline. Different universities may have different formats. However, in general, these are the typical contents. The name of the course, the code of the course, the names of academic staff teaching the course, the rationale of inclusions of this course, when this course is being offered, the total student learning time. The total student learning time is depending on the numbers of credit hours. 1 credit shall be equivalent to 40 SLT. Let's say now the course have 2 credit hours. There shall be at least 80 SLTs. For a typical 3 credit hours course, the SLT shall be 120. And then the credit value, the requisite or prerequisite of that particular course. That means that if there is any course to be taken before this course as a part of the requirement for the registry of this course. There are differences between the definitions of prerequisite and the requisite. The meaning of prerequisite is that the students will have to pass the previous course before they can enter this course. As for the requisite, as long as the students have taken the preceding course, it is regardless whether the students pass or not, the students may register this course. In terms of the requirements are different. Next, there shall be clear indications in terms of the outcomes. The statements of all the outcomes should be listed, which include the course outcome, program outcome, and also the program objectives. There shall be mappings of those outcomes, which program outcome are to be attained by the course outcome of this course. And then based on the program outcome attained, which program objective it is referring to. Also, there will be transferable skills indicated. These are the examples of the transferable skills, which is generic in nature, and it is important. On top of the knowledge, another important component helping the students to stay competitive in the working environment later, it will be the transferable skills. And then there will be specifications in terms of the teaching and learning, as well as the assessment strategies. This provides the guides to the lecturer who are handling the course in terms of the recommended teaching and learning, as well as the assessment method. A typical engineering program will have requirements in terms of the final examinations. In order to ensure the qualities of the students, final examinations is nearly a must for bachelor degree of engineering programs. There are also courses that without final examinations. Now the final examinations has to be replaced by something equivalent, which is the capstone projects. The typical ratio between coursework and the final examination, it will be 40-60. Some could try with 50-50. This is, of course, when the respective program would like to pay more emphasis in terms of the transferable skills, practical knowledge, complex engineering problem solving, as well as complex engineering activities. Now the bottom line here, the marks allocated for final examinations cannot be less than 50 marks out of total 100 marks for this course. In another word, the weightage of the coursework shall not exceed the final examinations or something equivalent. As far as I could recall, this is a part of the requirement by EAC. Now, when come to the assessment method, we would like to have certain degree of variety. This is in order to prevent the bias in terms of the assessment results. Next, there should be synopsis of the course, what the course is about, the mode of delivery, as well as the assessment method and type. There will be mappings of PO to PEO, as well as mapping from CO to PO. All these statements should have been clearly indicated in the outcomes here. The PO and PEO are consistent throughout the entire program. Only the CO differ by the courses, since there are so many courses under the same program. Next, there will be content or syllabus of the course and the recommended durations of the hours per topic are indicated. This serves as the baseline for the student learning time, SLT. In terms of the SLT, there will be face-to-face and non-face-to-face. Face-to-face representing the contact hours between the lecturers and the students. Non-face-to-face, it will be the students' independent learning time. Normally, it is easier to control at the face-to-face levels, and this should be in line with the timetables as given to the lecturers and the students. The contact hours shall govern the durations of meetings between the lecturers and the students for the teaching and learning and assessment activities. As for the non-face-to-face, normally it will be some assumptions. Having the assumption itself is not enough, which many lecturers have problem with it, complaining that this is something that we cannot control and cannot be verified. In my personal opinion here, when you have this kind of mentality, that means you have got the SLT wrong. Even this one is non-face-to-face, because we are focusing on the students, what the students learn. Everything is student-based, which we cannot ignore the non-face-to-face part. This is the first point. We are now not teacher-based learning. If it is teacher-based learning, we only need to quantify the face-to-face. But now we are talking about student-based learning. Non-face-to-face shall also be quantified. Now the argument here, it will be this is something that we cannot control, which I cannot fully agree with it. Since now our education has already transformed to the student-centered learning, it is also our obligations to facilitate the learning for the non-face-to-face part, which many lecturers do not know about this. In the perceptions of most of the lecturers, their responsibility is only here, and the rest, it will be based on the initiative of the students. This is not true. We are supposed to have some mechanism to facilitate the learning of the students for this non-face-to-face. If we design the facilitations mechanism properly, we can actually fully utilize this non-face-to-face student-centered learning. In another word, our misconceptions about the students' learning time is that we only carry half of the responsibility as stipulated in the course outline. Now, if you do not facilitate this part, of course, it will be based on the assumption, which normally students will not do, and it might end up to be zero non-face-to-face learning, or the actual non-face-to-face learning is actually much lesser than what was anticipated in the course outline. In another word, we do not actually fulfill the course outline. If you really study how do we conduct the course, in fact, we are doing partially already in terms of the facilitating the non-face-to-face learning time. For example, you ask the students to do the assignment. Definitely, students need to spend time to work out their assignments by themselves without having you sitting in the class or in front of you. Or you are conducting presentation section. The students will need to practice before the presentations. Or you are conducting the tests, progress tests or final examinations. Then the students will have to study for their finals as well as for the tests. All these are a part of the facilitations for the non-face-to-face SLT. Now, how about those other chapters that also require the non-face-to-face learning time? Normally, lecturers miss this part. Think about it, you will need to have some mechanism to facilitate the learning here, which many universities do not do that. If you do not facilitate the entire learning process, only good students will make good use of the non-face-to-face learning time, while the average and the poor students, most likely they don't care about it. And in fact, if in accordance to the course outline, this is a part of the responsibility of the lecturer as well. Now, your total SLT, it should be at least equals to the total credit hours times 40 SLT per credit hours. Sometimes there are courses with 1 credit hours. There may also be courses with 4 credit hours. Now, the total durations of the student learning time, which is the summations of the face-to-face plus the non-face-to-face learning, it should be at least the total SLT hours as stipulated in the course outline. Next, there will be a list of the main and additional references. The main references, it will be the references that the course based substantially in terms of the content. You may define that the main references will use up at least 75% of the content of the course that you can get from the reference. As for the additional references, it will be anything below the 75% and probably greater than 30%. That means the content is not substantially based on that references, but the references does contribute to that particular course. Why do we need to differentiate these two? Because the references shall also be made transparent to the students. In order for them to be able to perform well for this course, the student should refer to the source of the references, which the main reference you will get most of the content, while additional references you're going to have partial of the content. And if you have those references indicated in the course outline, you will need to make sure that there are actually those references in the library. The university must provide facility for the students to access those references. Now, if you are talking about the hard copy, if it is stated as the main references, depending on the size of your students, most likely you have to prepare 10 copies in the library. As for the additional references, 5 copies in the libraries. Or if possible, probably ebooks should be provided as well for the students to access them easily. This is another part that accreditations body shall check in order to triangulate the facilities available for the students. You need to do the curriculum review from time to time in order to keep your course and the program updated. especially for the main and additional references here. The recommended durations of those references, it will be within 5 years by the time that you're conducting the curriculum review. This is another part of the indications that you have actually continuously improved your program and keep it updated to the latest knowledge, theories, principles, and technologies. Lastly, there are other additional informations regarding the course. What you see here, the course outline here serves as the informations regarding the specifications and details of the course. Normally, the university will have a control version, which is the latest versions of the course outline to be implemented by the lecturers undertaking the respective course. You will need to make sure you have to strongly abide to the details and the specifications as stipulated in the course outline. Whatever is available and stated in the course outline, you cannot simply ignore them. Now, the focus of the teaching and learning activities as well as the assessment, it needs to be in line to what is stated there. The course outline also provides you some guidelines related to the transferable skills. And when it is stated in that particular course, you need to make sure the relevant skills are to be incorporated within the teaching and learning as well as the assessment of this course. Since there are so many aspects to be considered, out of the complexity, many lecturers do not really fully abide to it. Instead, they only focus on the topics to be delivered. Some even do not fully follow the topics and the subtopic as indicated in the content outline, which this is supposed not to be done. This will require the quality management system in order to regulate, enforce, and implement this. Imagine if the lecturers are not delivering in accordance to the specifications by the course outline. Whichever evaluations that we are doing later, it will be on the assumptions that we follow all this, which in fact you are not doing that. Then whichever result come out of this, whether it is satisfactory or non-satisfactory, has very limited or no correlation with anything within the course outline. Now, when come to the CQI, there is nothing for you to base on when you do the improvement plans. If it is stated there are transferable skills, you cannot omit that. If the contents are being listed, you cannot simply omit those and adding up something else. And this often happens among the lecturers. Now, if you realize that you have something disagree with the course outline, which you strongly believe that this is not really well done, now as long as you don't have the latest versions of the course outline, you will still have to strongly abide to this. And then you make sure whatever that you disagree or whatever that you find is inappropriate shall be revised and corrected during the next curriculum review. If you are so believe that whatever being stated here is not the best solutions, make sure you persuade the CQI committee with good justifications to revise accordingly. You are not allowed to deliver what is not stipulated in the course outline. Why do we need to say this? This is so that the evaluations as well as the continual quality improvement later will be meaningful. Now you realize that why a lot of lecturers complain that it is as if the continual quality improvements has never been effective. It is like running in the circle. No matter how you improve the program, eventually it repeats and back to square. Why is it so? Because the data that you use for the evaluations are basically on the basis that something that do not actually exist in the reality, especially when the lecturers do not abide to this. Do you really cover all the transferable skills? This is the common area that lecturers miss. Do you really follow the content as listed in the course? Also often being ignored. It takes the CQI committee too much effort to check on you whether you are delivering in accordance to the content. Do you design your teaching and learning activities as well as the assessment strongly correlated and abide to the COs? And when you design the teaching and learning activities as well as the assessment, not only to align with CO, you should also check if it is compatible and relevant to the PO that is supposed to be met to. And most likely you will follow the time allocated to you for the face-to-face student learning time, but there will be a large portion of it that you care less about the non-face-to-face learning time. You have no mechanism to facilitate the learning of the students, and yet you expect the students will fulfill that. Obviously not. And another things that may go wrong, it will be the accuracy and reliability of the assessment. Have you ever actually reviewed in terms of your assessment whether it is valid, reliable, and truly reflective the actual conditions of the students? Now the next argument here it will be, since that the programs are not doing the curriculum review within the next few years, normally they will do it once every cycle of the academic program. That means for a typical 4-year program, most likely they will do it once every 4 years or once every cycle of accreditations. Let's say now you score well for the engineering accreditations. The maximum durations given to you, it will be 6-year full accreditations. Now, what if the program decided to have one curriculum review once every cycle of accreditations? That means it's about 5 to 6 years. If you still strongly disagree with that, you may still discuss with your head of program or CQI committee. Minor corrections or modifications is allowed, of course with the regulations of the programs and the institutions. Whichever it is stated in the course outline, you will have to follow. And the course outline is not as rigid as you think it is. There are still certain degree of flexibility, especially if you see the course outline, how it is being written. For example, the delivery mode as well as the assessment methods and types. Normally, they will give you a list of the delivery mode and assessment methods and types, which they do not discrete into which delivery modes to which CO, which assessment must go to which COs. As long as you have the listed delivery mode and the assessment strategies, you can actually adjust the weightage and the emphasis. If you feel certain mode of delivery or assessment method is not appropriate, out of the series of the methods listed there, you may choose for the methods which is more appropriate and have it with larger weightage and emphasis. As for those which you feel is not really meaningful or difficult to handle by you, then you can reduce the weightage and portions. Just that you cannot fully ignore them. Same principles apply to the content of the course. There may be certain topic you feel is not really important, which you also don't know why it is listed there. Now, since it is listed there, at least you need to cover just that. You can still pay more emphasis towards the themes that you feel more appropriately reflect the unique features of the course. That means there are still some degree of flexibility for the person to handle the course. Different persons have different strategies and ways to deal with the course. As long as what is indicated in the course outline are fulfilled, now you have a good degree of flexibility in terms of emphasis that you would like to pay in the mode of the delivery and assessment. That means there are still ways for you to come about finding a comfortable place when handling with the course if you do not fully agree with the content as listed in the course outline. As for the time being, it will be until the next curriculum review. Make sure you provide active feedback to the CQI committee and to revise, modify, and improve accordingly so that the course become better and better, and so that the programs also continuously being improved, meeting the purpose of the programs. That is the whole purpose of OBE, as well as the continuous quality improvements.